Hello, dear friends and family. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. This is our class on Midot, quality, characteristics of the person's soul. That's a class we started with Mike and Dan probably 2 years ago, and we had some interruption a little bit. We did it in a shul in Atlanta, and then my wife and I we made Aliyah. We still come to visit. We have friends and family in America. We live in Beersheba now, and I several times have heard from people, "What about a class on Midot? Why do we stop? When's the next session? When's the next lecture?" But I don't look at it as a lecture. I look at it as a discussion to learn from each other, to to hear from each other, to feel each other's support, concerns, love, help, complaining maybe a little bit, and maybe a little bit sharing the news. So the class of Midot we started with Mike, and then we made Aliyah about 4 years ago, 2017. To now, today is 2021. Technically, it's 5,781. Today is Thursday, Yom Hamishi, 22nd of Shvat. We're coming pretty soon to Pesach, and Pesach is a time for us to introspect and retrospect and look back. What did we do good? What did we do maybe not so good? And the book, we used a book. This is a book that Mike actually suggested. I got it. That was several years ago. Olam HaMidot, Olam HaMidot, by Rabbi Moshe Dan Kestenbaum. We started to study it. We started to do um, to look at our lives in terms of our behavior. How do we treat other people? How do we treat our family? How do we treat our friends? We're supposed to love each other, a fellow Jew, no matter how uh, difficult at times it might seem to me. We have to go beyond that. Nashiter dov, get our soul silent to the problems and look at the positive things. And that is what the class of Midot is supposed to do. So 4 years ago, we made Aliyah. I sent some updates about our life in Israel. How do I adjust? And I want to kind of add together in this discussion on Midot that perhaps that reflects to the questions and requests I received why we stopped our class. So I'll try uh, to fill the space and time between the last class, which was probably a couple of years ago, until to today. Well, first of all, I'll say we're adjusting with my wife in Israel pretty well. That's not to say it's without challenges. And we found that Israelis really are sabras. Sabra is the cactus. They're tough people. They push and shove. They get you they cut in front of you, and many times perhaps impolite, but that's a surface. The sabra, the cactus, tough on the surface, it's soft inside. The same person who cuts you off on the road or say not a nice word, if a couple of miles down the highway he sees you on the side of the road with a flat tire, he will pull over and help you change it. And if you need to be rushed to the hospital, he'll get you to the hospital. In Israel, we see a lot of, I wouldn't call it charitable organization, but the whole country is a country of Rahmanes, the country of Hesed. Even though on the surface it takes time to get through the surface of the cactus and get to the softness. It's like an Arabic sword that is created to bend and not break. It's hard on the surface, but it's pliable. And that's what Israelis are. They're sabras. And now then we feel, well, speaking for my, we both do, but I was specifically speaking for myself, it was difficult adjustment a little bit. It was exciting the first year. And people say, talking to other people, it takes maybe 3, 5 years to really fully adjust. The first euphoria of getting there is replaced by frustrations of dealing with reality. And some people leave Israel who cannot handle it. I don't know percentage or statistics, but if I had to guess, Perhaps 10% of people who made Aliyah probably return. And somebody mentioned to me that the land spits out its inhabitants that don't fit. I think it's in the Torah somewhere. I don't remember the pasuk. Maybe somebody, if a rabbis will listen, will tell me where does it say so. So there's certainly a selection process to pass the test of hardness in order to get to kindness and softness. So then the frustration eventually wears out, and you get to understand how the country really works, and then you become more comfortable. I think that's the stage we're entering right now. And I was born in Russia. I spent most of my life in US, and I've been now in Israel for 4 years. So you could say, what's my motherland? In Russian, Родина. Где моя Родина? Where's my motherland? Direct translation. What the place you were born. And that's a place you cherish. Well, I was born in Russia, Ukraine technically. Is that really the place I cherish most of all? I have fond memories of childhood. But I also remember that that was a country that was kind to me, mostly. I can say that I experienced a lot of anti-Semitism as a Jew, but you never felt that it's really my country. We're always a little bit outsiders. In America, I also feel very comfortable. I feel very grateful to America that received me, that gave me a lot. And I, to this day, am very grateful. And I met a lot of good people in America. And I loved America, and I do love America. And I find the memories that I have are nice memories. Some maybe a little bit uh, challenging, but mostly I had a good time. And yet, it's a country that was very pleasant for us to sojourn there, but not really my land. Israel, I'm coming, and it is just my opinion. You can disagree or feel differently. That's fine. I have no problem now to say I'm a Jew first and then Israeli. As if I lived in America, I would say I'm a Jew first and then American, or I'm a Jew first and then Russian. I'm finding that many American Jews, I think, will not that quickly or easily will answer the question, who are you first, American or Jew? Are you Jewish American or American Jew? Some people will find the question is silly, that it can be both. Why do you have to pick and choose? I think there are times when you have to pick and you have to choose. The land we that I'm surrounded by, the air that I'm surrounded by in Beersheba, that's where Abraham Avinu, our forefather Abraham, lived. Is my great great grandfather. That is my land. And I didn't feel I came to Israel to make aliyah, to oleh. That means to come up to your land, not to come down or uh, go to Israel. We're returning to Israel. We're returning to the land of our ancestors. Abraham Avinu, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, our prophets, our kings, our people with good and bad that transpired over the centuries. For 3,500 years approximately, a little bit more. We were there. Not 300 years, not 900 years, but centuries and millenniums. This is our land. So when coming back to Rabbi Kestenbaum's book on Midot of Hesed, Rahmanis, kindness. I always think if I would describe, let me ask you the question. If you describe the Torah in one word, what would that word be? I ask this question to some people. Some people say truth. Some people say learning. Some people say way of life. Well, 2 words, I guess it's fine. Many things. Love. To me, one word, if I would pick, it would be kindness. Hesed or Rahmanis, kindness. Dobrota in Russian. And at the famous story where the heaven asked Hillel Hazaken, a great sage, at the time I can stand on one leg, on one foot. Tell me about the Torah. I don't have a lot of time to study all that. What is that? What is a Torah? And Hillel said, that which is hurtful to you, do not do to the others. But that's not what Hillel said. If you stopped on that, only that. Nice, very kind. Well, how is that different from just living a good life? With no Torah, with no Bible, with no religion. Just be a good person, innate characteristic of a human being, the common thing that all humanity shares coming down from Adam, Harishon, Adam and Eve. From them, the good things we should have learned. We don't need Torah, we don't need any books. That should naturally come to us. Be a good person. We know what it means. Is that really true? Well, when Hillel said, that which is hurtful to you, do not do to others, he then added, now go and learn. Now go and learn. He didn't say stop. Just you guy got it. What else? I don't have time. I have a project to meet. I have money to make. I have meetings to rush to. I don't have time for that. Hillel said, basically, now go and learn. So when we need to be kind, when Rav Kestenbaum is talking Midos, he's talking about kindness to others, kindness to yourself, respect to others, love, honor your parents. Well, we just went through this week, Parashat Yitro, Exodus, the fifth parasha of Exodus, right in the middle, Yitro. That's what 10 Commandments. God is giving us 10 Commandments. 1, 2, 3. From then, 613 commandments essentially expand. But the 10 of them is a core, beginning core that Hashem uttered to us at Mount Sinai. And one of the commandments is quickly following, you know which one? Honor your parents. It says love your God. You shall love your God. But it says honor your parents. It doesn't say love your parents. It's a very difficult concept to love somebody as a commandment. You can respect somebody, you can do somebody else's will, but can you really love somebody? Somebody says, you have to love me, you have to love him, you have to love her. It says honor your parents. I would love to be loved by my children. I would love to be loved by my grandchildren. I know that I'm loved by my wife, and I love my wife. But the parents' commandment is to honor. It would be nice if to love. There's nothing wrong with loving your parents. I know some of my best friends are people who love their parents. But honor your parents means you may not agree with your dad. You may not agree with your grandfather or your mother or grandmother. But if he comes to the room, you have to give them a glass of water. You have to sit them at the table. You have to respect them. You have to take care of them. Just like when you were young, they took care of you. It is time that you help them. It's honor. And this is a topic that I want to talk also a little bit later. What is the difference, as I'm finding this attitude of kindness, between Israel, as I live now for 4 years? I've been coming to Israel for many years. My mother, my son's grandmother, who lived in Israel, she died in Beersheba. She's buried right here, 2 miles from here, in the cemetery. It says, Feiga, Nelik. From Jeremiah 31:6, that who dispersed Israel, he will gather them in. Jeremiah. That's on my at my mother's, my son's grandmother's grave. It says that. She loved Russia, my mother. She had a good time there. She was a teacher. She had a lot of students who loved her, respected her, honored her, loved her. But she died in Israel. And that is her grave. And this is the land of her ancestor, of my ancestor, of my son's ancestors, of my grandchildren's ancestor, my wife's children, my wife's grandchildren. So I'm finding some differences. Just to share a difference between Israelis and American Jewish differences. I was thinking of this, and I think, of course, there's exceptions to the rules all the time. There are exceptions to the rule. But I'm finding, just for me, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong. In Israel, Israeli Jews have their life, their good life. They have new cars, refrigerators. The lawn to mow is a lawnmower that breaks sometimes. Big problem. Other issues, Corona, of course, now that's a problem for everybody. The life, you have to take care of kids. You have to take them to the basketball game. You have to buy um, a summer home. You have to buy a vacation. You have to go visit friends. You have to do lots of things. You don't neglect Torah. You go to the Torah. You go to synagogue on Saturday. Maybe you get there. You participate in a community, in Jewish community. Very nice. Very, very nice. Beautiful. You have a steak nights. You have fundraising nights. A lot of these activities help Israel, help Israeli Jews. American Jews are notorious to be kind people and helpful to a lot of people. Non-Jews as well, but certainly for Jews. You go through Israel, you find this particular hospital is dedicated by Jewish community of New York. This particular library or school by the Jewish community of Los Angeles. So you see it all the time. So we cannot be neglectful of the fact that how nice the Jewish community in America is. Wonderful, and our hats off, or our keep us on to that, to you. But I'm finding the generic difference is that American Jews fit their life, fit the, they have their life, and they have a Torah, and they fit the Torah to their life. They have a life and they fit the Torah, and if something doesn't fit, then it doesn't fit. That commandment doesn't fit, and that area doesn't fit because I'm too busy, because today I have to write a report for work, and I can't go to a Torah class, or I can't do a mitzvah to help an old lady because I have something else to do. Sorry, I would love to, but I can't. We fit the Torah into our lives. I find in Israel overall, and in Israel, there's a mix. There's a religious community, non-religious community, semi-religious community, and everything in between. Basically, overall concept that we fit life to Torah. The Jews in Israel seem to fit life to Torah. There's a Torah, and it tells you how to do certain things. And then I wanted to go basketball on Saturday because I have a championship to go in Haifa. Tel Aviv Haifa game will be on Saturday. Well, we don't play it on Saturday. We love to play. I love to play, but we don't, because on Shabbat we don't play. There are exceptions to the rules, and there's a many violation, I would say, from the Torah and commandments. Yes, but the common feeling in the air that we know that there is a Torah, and we know that we cannot fit certain things from our life to that. That's a difference. Israeli Jews fit their life into the Torah. Americans fit the Torah into their life. They both have both. Torah and life. Life and Torah. Nice. But there's a little bit of a difference. I want now to tell the three stories that illustrates the concept of the kindness that Rabbi Kestenbaum is teaching us, and we have been learning in our classes, and maybe you would like me to share that with you. Three stories. The first story about children and parents story. Well, that's interesting. I talked many times with my cousins here in Israel. I talked with some friends, and we discussed many times that modern society understands that the children grow up, children and parents, and they leave the house. And it's understood by Western civilization, by democracy, by our society. That's normal things, and we have to, as parents, to help them grow their wings, to let them fly. If the child grew up in New York and he wants to go to University of California to become a best surgeon in the world because he loves medicine, and that's what the best school he can find, he will go there, and the mother and father says, go, great opportunity. And for the son to go there and for the daughter to go to Kansas City Research Laboratory, that's a wonderful thing. And we support them, generally support them. It does happen that later, when the parents that send the kids to school, and they talk to them, they come for holidays every so often, but then they get a little bit older and they say, I kind of miss the fact that I don't have my 3, 4 children 5 grandchildren nearby. I would love to have together for a holiday. And if I don't feel good, by the way, it would be nice if somebody came and says, "Hey, Dad, how do you feel? I sure maybe do I need to go to the doctor? Do I need to get the medicine? This hurts, that's hurt. Hey, here's Los Angeles. I'm in New York. Sorry, I'll call you. How you feel? I feel okay, son. Oh, great. Okay. Anyway, what about you? We got another refrigerator. And then delivered the 19-inch TV, a 27-inch TV. Well, wonderful, wonderful. What an accomplishment. You really achieved something in life. Great. So I asked others, I discussed that in our discussions. We also have a Russian Torah study group in Israel. And we talk about I have a friend from Murmansk. I have some people from America, from Canada, from Israel. We have every Sunday and Thursday at 8 o'clock Israeli time. We get on Zoom and we discuss it, we argue, we debate, we have a great time. And basically, it all comes to the point. People say, don't be so harsh on people. Don't judge them so much. God forbid, I don't want to judge people, but it seems like you're judging. You want people to be like you. You want the people to do this. You want the people to do that. Hey, come on, give them a break. Don't be so harsh. Negativism. You project negativism. So I project negativism. And then negativism means that it's not appropriate. It's putting boundaries on the children to stay close. It's putting boundaries on grandchildren to be together, to live in the same house. Do you want to live in a house like you did in Russia, in Ukraine, Afghanistan? 2 rooms, 4 people in 1 room, and 7 in another room. What a happy family. Is that what you really want? Sometimes I wonder, given the choices of extremes, to have a family in Los Angeles and me in a big house at a 90-year-old in New York, I think I'd take 7 people in 1 room. You might not. Crazy, you might think. Well, maybe a better situation, have 1 big house, if you can afford it, and many, many rooms, and a family in this 4 bedrooms apartment, and 3 bedroom apartment, now family, and a 7 bedroom apartment, a huge family, or maybe not in the same building, maybe across the street. Maybe somebody in this town and nearby town, but that is subject to a debate perhaps, but still close community, close to live together. A nice concept. I don't think most people disagree. They say, no, of course it's nice. But there's no school to become a great surgeon nearby. It's a small town. There's no opportunities here. You gotta go across the country, 5-hour flight to get to the school. So unfortunately, I have a calling. I want to be a surgeon, or I want to be an airplane pilot, and my base is in Paris or England, or maybe I'll go to China because I want to study viruses. So go, son, daughter. So many, many reasons. So what we collectively came to a thought that in Israel, and it's probably in the world similar reflection, but in Israel, there are 3 groups of people, so to speak. The religious people, dati, or semi-religious. And I'm finding there's a lot more religious people than you might think. Just because they're walking around without kippah doesn't necessarily mean they're not religious. I see a lot of people with short sleeves, t-shirts, no kippah. Hey, wait a minute! I don't have time right now to help you with a cash register, but hold on, I'm finishing my coffee. Takes a coffee, say bracha, say blessing, drinks coffee, and then helps. No kippah, nothing. Call it religious, call it non-religious. Well, but basically, religious society is strong here in Israel, strong, and it's getting stronger. Even officially, religious society is getting bigger and stronger, but unofficially, it's not as it was in 1948 when the state was founded, where it was almost anti-religious movement. Ben Gurion needed to build a strong Jew. Golda Meir, get the economy going, get the structure going. They've done their job. They did a wonderful job. But attitude towards religion wasn't necessarily as it was by Herzl also didn't think about religious point. It's not a shtetl in Poland or shtetl in Russia. But now in 5781, 2021, the society is more shifted to the right, so to speak. I'm talking religious right, maybe political right also, although there's a lot of right and left politically in Israel, just like in America, there is right and left. But general move is more towards religion, slowly but sure. Why? So that's the first group, the religious group, if you will. Then another group who is Haloni, non-religious group. A lot of people non-religious. Even non-religious people are really not completely non-religious. They may go on Shabbos on the beach. But even in the beach, sitting on Shabbos, a cup of coffee, non-kosher sandwich, they can still say a bracha. Religious people will say, God forbid, how can they do it? They don't know any better and they feel that they're together with God. They're together. To them, it's okay. That topic by itself can be debated and can it be right, can it be wrong, but overall there's a feeling of something, feeling of God is within Israeli air. It's everywhere, it permeates the entire thing. So as soon as you cross into the Israeli airspace, boom, you get a shockwave. You are in Israeli airspace, it's the air, it's Abraham, it's a Torah. Believe it or you don't believe it, it gets you. It gets you. The third group is kibbutzim, which is non-city dwellers, and they generally not religious. So they would say, thank God, bless God. They say it sometimes, but they don't mean really God. It's almost expression. Thank goodness everything worked out good. Thank goodness everything worked out okay. So from those three groups, the first group, Dati, the family is big, typically 6, 7, 8, 10 kids, 20 grandkids, and they live jointly, they live together. We learned with rabbis recently in Baba Basra, I think, in a Talmud Baba Basra, that it says the person should never sleep alone. It says a person should never sleep alone. What does it mean? That's a commandment. The Torah, the Talmud reflect the person should never sleep alone. So in a religious family, when an older person, and I'm talking about a specific family that is that lives in Texas, Texans family, and they have some issues that our group discussed, and reflecting that story, so that the religious community always surrounded by somebody close by. Hey, grandmother, how are you doing? I just stopped in to drop tomatoes for you. Do you need any medicine? Oh, well, Chaim will come in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, and he will take you to the doctor. And then you want to go still to the beach? If you feel okay next Monday, we can come pick you up. It continues. The person never sleeps alone. The person always feels comfortable. Just like his son or grandson felt when they were little, now he feels comfortable. That's unity of the family, no such psychological pressure on loneliness, no worries about sleeping alone, no worries you will be abandoned, it will go into the nursing home care, wonderful nursing home with the nurses, with the medicine, with a bed, with a window, with the classes for elderly people, with the field trips, and eventually you die there, and the children come and bury you, and what a great end of life. They don't believe in that type of life. They believe that a person must be continuously surrounded, and they learn this from the Torah. When they sit around the tables, as I observed, at Shabbat and discussing Torah, they don't just study Torah for the sake of technicalities, learning how many letters, how many words in this Torah, but they learn it, they discuss it, what did Yaakov and Esau, the brothers. Esau hated Yaakov, and yet he wouldn't kill him while his father was still alive. He had respect for his parent. Is that a good thing? Is it hypocrisy? Is it bad? Well, agree or disagree, Ishmael. Sarah says, Abraham, get Ishmael out. And Abraham was sad about it. It was good for Sarah to tell Abraham to get rid of his own son, flesh and blood? Was it nice? How did Abraham feel? Should Abraham stand strong and say, Sarah, I'm sorry, this is my son, I really cannot do that? Was it commandment of God? The result of that, right or wrong, is not the point I'm making right now. The point is that is being discussed. People discuss, debate, disagree what the Torah say about it. And the children, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, rolling around, playing games, banging, hitting each other over the head, don't listen to what the adults are talking about. And yet, if you tell them what did dad just say, they can almost verbatim tell you exactly what happened. They live this atmosphere, they're crawling under the tables, they're walking around, and yet they hear, observe, and they learn, and it becomes their natural upbringing how to live their life today, later, and as adults, as mature people, to take care of their children, to take care of their parents. That's integral part of her psyche. I looked up in the Torah. In Vayechi, in Genesis, when Joseph dwelled in Egypt, he and his father's household, Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw 3 generations through Ephraim. Even the sons of Machir, son of Manasseh, Machir being grandson of Joseph, were raised on Joseph's knees. Joseph, the grandfather, raised his grandchildren on his knees. Hey, Dad, let's go fishing together. No, I'm really busy right now. Grandpa will take you. Okay. Grandma, what are you doing? Oh, I'm teaching my granddaughter how to make pancakes. So that continuity of the grandfather, father, and grandson was continuous. It was not separate. Well, Dad, we have our own family. We raise our children. Thank you for letting us know how to raise our children. But thanks, but no thanks. We know how to raise them ourselves. We don't need any advice. Don't interfere. We'll call you. We'll love you. But we'll come for a week, and then you can go home. Love. We love you, but listen, don't judge us. No judging. God forbid. So that's what Torah says. 3 generations together. And then, of course, grandparents die. Joseph dies. And his sons, by then, have their children's children, grandchildren. And that trinity of grandparents, parents, and grandchildren, grandsons, granddaughters, continuity is there. Always comfortable, societal structure, not very commonly known or understood or appreciated by modern society. Did we progress beyond archaisms of the old age? Did we go beyond what's supposed to be normal? Do we look at it as not normal, obsolete? There's a new technology, the internet, Google. You can talk to grandpa, grandma by Google, by Zoom, by WhatsApp. Why do we need to physically touch you, to kiss you, to take you fishing? Who needs that? Got basketball games to go see. Okay, not to be harsh. And the second group, the non-religious group in Israel too, that's how that group basically behaves. It learns a lot from America. Some people say Israelis tend to take not so good things from America, and the good things they tend to kind of not to take. You have a car driving on the street, boom, 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 American rap. That's what we learned from Americans. Wonderful. Well, why don't we learn how to send spaceships up in the moon? That's a good thing, technology. Well, we'll learn some of that too, I guess. So that society, the non-religious society, technological society, and statistically, Josh gave me the book to read, my son gave me the book to read, and in this book I learned that the gap of the income between average religious and non-religious person in Israel is significant, and yet majority of the religious people in Israel in the survey say we're very happy. We're happy. No, they're happy. And majority are non-religious, secular, Hilanim, that I'm just explaining, saying, well, we're not really happy. We go to psychiatrists all the time. We discuss our issues, and that doesn't work, and I'm afraid to be fired, and this and that. The charities, people who donate money, 94% of religious people donate charity, significant amount from whatever they make. Secular Israelis donate approximately 60% of them make charity, 40 don't, even though they're making 10 times more money than religious on an average. Okay, That is a Western society. That's democracy in the making. That's how that society works. That's how the society treats their parents. That's how society treats their grandparents. Separation, separation, separation. The third one is kibbutzim. Kibbutzim are generally non-religious. My cousins live there, and they told me that. The life in kibbutz also very similar to a first group, to religious dati. Not from a Torah standpoint necessarily, but they're always together. Grandmother always buys gifts, teaches granddaughter how to cook, and grandfather and grandson go swimming together. They live together, even though the Torah doesn't take a big, doesn't occupy a substantial amount of time, almost none in kibbutzim, and yet that group, a small group, kibbutzim, relatively small group, that group reflects family structure, similar to the first group dati. Why? You have to explain to me. That's a question I leave with you. But this middle group, second group, that's a Western group, that's American group, that's the European group, that's a group that elevated itself, quote unquote, to the level that the connection with the past is not as important as the connection to the technology of the future. It bothers me. I wonder if it bothers you. You might say there's no other choice. Or how can I make a mortgage? If we start doing this life, I can't pay no mortgage. I have a 2-storied house or 3-storied house, many rooms, 2 cars. Kids have to go to college. They have to go to Wisconsin to college. They have to go to Los Angeles. They have to chase their dream. I have to have $20,000 for this and $50,000 for that. How can I make this money if I start living this archaic life? Well, maybe the thought is, maybe don't need to live this modern life. Maybe that archaic life does present the values that bring you happiness. Then I also thought, before I go to the second story, why people in Israel is also difficult. America, green pasture, green, beautiful streams, everything's so wonderful, everything grows, paradise. Same in Russia, in Europe, in Israel, desert. Of course, a lot of it now green. We made it, but it's still a lot of desert. And I asked my wife. Well, how come? Why is it? If we live religious life, we try to get some moral values, and I've been maybe critical over the Western values. Why is it so nice, so easy living? And then the answer came from my Torah class study that I actually studied with Rabbi. One of the best things that just came across. We learned Sanhedrin. That's the Talmud, Masechta Sanhedrin. Not to overwhelm you with too much religion. Please forgive me. But I want to read you something here that just struck me the other day, and I outlined it here in yellow and green text. And it talks about how the person is supposed to talk to the heretic, non-religious cynic, who says, listen, this is not right, this is not right. In one point we talked about that God immersed himself in fire for clarification. It's very esoteric, it's very like agadic explanation, not literal, of course. And heretic is asking Rabbi Abahu, how he can immerse in fire? If he immersed in fire for cleanseness, it's not like mikvah. You can't clean yourself with fire. You have to clean yourself with water, not with fire. Rabbi Abahu is answering him. On the contrary, the primary form of immersion is fire, and he is going to Torah, Numbers 31, verse 23. Numbers 31, 23, which talks about purification of objects, but concept applies to people as well. Mikvah. Purification. And he said, as it's written, and all that cannot pass through fire, you shall pass through water. You cannot handle fire, pass through water. So I asked my wife, well, how come? We live in Israel, and Moshe went in like a joke. The Moshe wanted to go to Canada. Instead of he went to Canaan. Why not? Why did God take us? Why did God take us to Canaan? Why did modern Israel? Why don't we go to Canada or America or Russia or something green, Iran? I learned today is Wednesday, and in my morning prayers, I happened when we read the final song of the day, this is for Thursday, in the very end it says, Vayechalechu michalev chita umetzur davas azbecha. But he would feed him with the cream of the wheat and with honey from a rock, saith you. We're here in a desert, in a rock, because it is fire. And if you can't handle the fire, you have to go through water. Not everybody can handle the fire. It's not for everybody. It's definitely for the Jews, but everybody has different circumstances, and sometimes the fire must be too much. But if you handle the fire, if you can persevere and get through that, on the other side of those purifications becomes a nugget. It purifies, and that's a mikveh of fire, and that is what Israel is about. If we don't pray, there's no rain. We don't get Nile irrigating the fields. We don't have Mississippi or Missouri or great Volga rivers to give us everything we need. The wheat we'll get, but we need to pray for that, as the psalm just said here. Well, that's the first story about the parents and grandparents. And I know actually the story how the family in Texas with the 3 kids, that one of the children decided not to speak to dad. He decided not to speak to dad because dad very often tells him what I'm just saying to you. A criticism, a negativism, non-understanding, non-supportiveness, archaisms, and being stuck in the past. That's what the person was, his father was accused of. The other 2 brothers just stood by. Well, sorry. I mean, I guess dad and Bobby couldn't get along. What can we do? It wouldn't bother. No, what bothered that person was telling me in our classes is not as much the conflict itself, although that was a problem. But the fact is these other 2 children didn't do anything to push it a little bit, to say to another kid, listen, knock it off. Are you kidding? You cannot treat dad like that. What did he do to you? He bothers you too much with his religion, with his speeches, with his Israel, with his desire to be close to your children, his grandchildren, granddaughters, grandchildren, grandsons. That's bad. But even if he does that periodically calling you on the distance because you don't live close together, could you just give him a break? What is the commandment? Honor your parents. Is that honoring your parents by denying your future to the person? Callousness. What happened to the heart? Did the heart get circumcised? Circumcise your heart, the Torah says. Maybe it didn't get circumcised. For you, the message was negativism. Leave the story in there. Another story, the family in Wisconsin had 2 brothers that had a milk farm. And one brother started the farm, and the second brother kind of went into the business with him and eventually started his own business, which causes much conflict because the older brother would say, listen, I taught you everything, you owe me everything, and now you're leaving, and by the way, you took the best cow, you owe me $70,000, and until you give me $70,000, I don't want to know, I have no brother, it's all gone. That's it. Now, the reason I'm telling you because the Jewish community in Wisconsin did nothing. They tried to make it up, but then they say, what can you do? If they can't make it up, what can we do? And they washed their hands because they had too much time on their hand to study. Rabbi Kestenbaum saying, sometimes the Torah is our water. We drink it for life. But sometimes Torah can be poison. And too much studying Torah while the 2 brothers don't talk to each other. It's criminal. It's criminal for the community to do this. And people of leadership in these communities are responsible for not making enough effort. How? By giving up. The Talmud says if you try to do something 400 times and it fails, you do it 401. 401. Not I tried 5 times, it didn't work. What can I do? I'm busy for the fundraising. Sorry, you failed. You can fix it, but so far you failed. And a third story, there's a lady in Florida, in Jewish community in Florida, also part of the Torah discussions on Sundays. And that lady is crippled a little bit, and she has no family. She's sick. She's in her 60s. She has nobody. She sits at home, watches TV. She had a social worker, non-Jewish social worker comes in, which also quit coming periodically. And she basically is ready to die. And the Jewish community was approached there, nearby, Jewish community, by somebody else outside their Florida area. Take care of this lady. And they said, Kollel is busy in their own program. Maybe that's her calling. Hello? Ronit, I'll call you right back. Yeah, כמה דקות, כמה דקות. Yes, yeah, כמה דקות, yeah, bye-bye. Yeah. You see, I practice a little bit of a Hebrew here, right? So, and the reason community said because we have to study. Kollel is busy in Torah study. Here's a Torah, and here's a Talmud. And if we finish the whole Shas, the whole area of Talmud, we have a very, very nice accomplishment, and God would love us, and we love God, and we don't have that much time for this lady. And we do actually help other people and other ladies. And basically, we help them. If somebody, God forbid, dies, we'll bring soup for several days, which is nice mitzvah. And we have a fundraising to get flowers going around the synagogue because the flowers make it nice. And if somebody needs a ride, we can give a ride. Or if somebody goes to the store and somebody is kind of elderly, they can't do it, we can bring them food. We help them. But I'm finding that there's 3 types of groups of people here. There's the people who don't need any help. People basically healthy, in good health, normal family. They take care of themselves. Then there's a group of people who are struggling. They might be poor, or they might not be in good health. But or somebody, God forbid, dies and they're in shock, horrible. And community comes through and helps. But there's this third group of people who are people in extreme problem. They don't have much money. They have no relatives. They don't have a good health. And they have nobody to help them. And the Jewish Federation is busy raising money for the new bridge, or for new expansion to the synagogue, or new expansion to the Jewish Community Center. When the old lady is sitting ready to die, because to take 10 minutes drive from the shul to visit her, to bring her soup, to clean up, maybe every other day, maybe for an hour, a volunteer. Of course, it was a corona now, it's understandably difficult, but there's a ways to go around it. We don't have time. 10 minutes drive, it's out of our way. Is that Jewish attitude? Knock it off. Studying Torah? Study Torah. Live Torah. Don't read Torah. Don't read it. Study it. Learn it. I might seem getting a little bit angry. And many of you would say, wow, you're getting angry. That's a big sin. The Torah says, Talmud says, angry person is a very, very big disaster. Well, tell it to Isaiah. Tell it to Jeremiah. Tell it to Pinchas. Tell it to people who took their lives in order to bring up the issues. So people don't take it personally, but take the message and not the messenger and do something about it. Well, that is the discussion on Midot. today's class? Any questions? Any comments? What do you think? You don't have to agree with everything you say, with everything I say. You may not even agree with anything I say. You completely can wipe it out. Say, this is a raving lunatic, Lev. He is talking about, I have no idea what he's talking about. He is nuts. Fine, I respect your opinion. You have different opinion from me. You might agree with some and disagree with others. Or you can be completely agreeing. Either way is fine with me. If you want to hear more about it, let me know. I would like to hear. I want to know from the people I'll send this message with attachment, how many will be touched a little bit by the heart to do something, to help that lady, and to make the peace between the two brothers, and enhance the relationship between the parents, grandparents, and grandchildren, so that it's not only all about me. I'll tell you what new refrigerator and a car I bought today, but how you doing, Mom? How you doing, Dad? How you doing, Grandfather? So you can play this movie in the background, the movie of love. Commandment to honor, commandment is to love. Love God, honor parents. How do you mix the two? How do you understand the differences? That's the midah of Hesed. And thanks to Rabbi Moshe Don Kestelbaum. And you, our audience, my friends, my dear friends, the dear Jews that I love, and my family, the dear family that I love, all our children, all our grandchildren, their wives, their parents, their extended families. God bless you from Beersheba. And stay in touch and do something with your life so that somebody else can tell how great you are. Not each one of us will think how great we are, but what did you do for somebody else that makes sure the person doesn't sleep alone, that the person is not sad, the person is not ill, to the extent you can do it. That is, I think, the key. That is what Torah teaches us. The Torah teaches us that nothing wrong to have a nice house and a nice car and vacation, extra home for resorts, an extra airplane trip, and all this stuff we have is wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. But remember the priority. What comes first and what comes second? Because when we all grow through life and grow older, eventually we experience that the previous generation before us experienced. And hopefully when we learn in their experience, learn the lessons, it will make us better people. It makes us better God-fearing people, whether you're religious or not. Let's call it colloquialist people. That makes you a good human being. Whether you're the Jew, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whoever. That's what our Torah teaches you. Nothing against any other religions. They have their own sources, just as humane and nice. Follow that as well. But reach out inside yourself. And from my standpoint, for the Jews, our manual for life, Torah, Hesed. Amen.